block. Remember again the Gita's idea that we need to free ourselves from the grip of desire in order to choose and in order to have genuine freedom. Aristotle's got that idea too. The kind of case Aristotle might have in mind is something like this. You might be somebody who is very courageous, who knows how to save lives, who sees somebody who is in distress in the surf. You're a good swimmer, you know how to do that, but there's somebody selling chocolate ice cream just down the beach, and you really love chocolate ice cream. And even though you know that what you want to do and ought to do is save the drowning child, the pull of the chocolate is just too strong, and moral weakness overcomes you, and you buy the chocolate ice cream and let the kid drown. I hope this isn't you. But anyway, you can imagine the phenomenon. You can imagine the phenomenon much less dramatically if you're somebody who really wants to lose weight, really knows that the chocolate ice cream is not a good idea, you know how to forego the chocolate ice cream, but somehow the hand reaches out and grabs it. That's the kind of moral weakness that Aristotle is worried about. And Aristotle will argue that flourishing, eudaimonia, therefore requires not only virtue, not only practical wisdom, but also moral strength. So it's this three-dimensional account of character that will be very distinctive of Aristotle. Finally, what we're going to see is that Aristotle will argue that these three dimensions of character provide a context, the possibility for flourishing, but flourishing really requires a larger context. It requires a context in which we have external goods, not only material goods for Aristotle, food, housing, a stable society, and so forth, but more important, Aristotle is going to argue that we need friendship. And so there will be a sustained discussion of friendship in Aristotle's ethics as a central component of the meaningful life. As I said, we're not going to find in Aristotle's text beautiful poetry. So you're going to have to put that kind of expectation aside if you've developed it after the Gita. But what you are going to find is some gorgeous, tight, close, careful philosophical argument that represents beauty of a different kind and urges us to read in a slightly different way, a way that's kind of more analytical, and to find beauty in the abstract rather than in the beautiful prose. So, Aristotle's going to begin by talking a bit about virtue, and he does that by asking the question, what is the highest good? As I promised, he's going to argue for each claim. And so now, prepare to roll up your sleeves and get really textual, because we're going to enter the Nicomachean Ethics. We're going to enter it right at the beginning in Book 1, Chapter 1. So Aristotle begins, every art or applied science and every systematic investigation, and similarly every action and choice, seems to aim at some good. The good, therefore, has been well defined as that at which all things aim. So Aristotle begins almost definitionally, just telling us we're going to think of whatever is good, good life, good dog, good whatever, as that at which something aims. But what we care about is not just goodness in knives or goodness in dogs. We care about the good for a human being, and that's going to be that at which all things aim. So Aristotle continues, but it's clear that there is a difference in the ends at which they aim. In some cases, the activity is the end. In others, the end is some product beyond the activity. In cases where the end lies beyond the action, the product is naturally superior to the activity. So this is actually a simple point. Aristotle is pointing out that some of the things we do in order to produce something. I cook in order to produce food. I build a house in order to have a house. But some things we do just for the activity itself. I play soccer just to play soccer. I play music just to play music. Where there is a product beyond the activity is the goal and is more important than the product. After all, if I could have food just by snapping my fingers, maybe I wouldn't cook. If I could have a house just by snapping my fingers, I wouldn't bother building. So the point of an activity might be internal, but if it's external, we care more about the point than we do the activity itself. Aristotle continues, since there are many activities, arts and sciences, the number of ends is correspondingly large. Of medicine, the end is health. Of shipbuilding, a vessel. Of strategy, victory. And of household management, wealth. In many instances, several such pursuits are grouped together under a single capacity. So here we see a kind of divergence from a Platonic point of view. Aristotle is pointing out there isn't simply one idea of good. There are different goods corresponding to different activities, different kinds of domains. And sometimes, he's going to point out, these things are grouped together. Let's look at how they're grouped together. Aristotle writes, the art of bridle making, for example, that's an important art, and everything else equestrian are grouped together under horsemanship. Horsemanship, in turn, along with every other military action, for Aristotle, of course, horsemanship only made sense in the context of the cavalry. He didn't do dressage. So, again, horsemanship, in turn, along with every other military action, is grouped together under strategy. In all these cases, the ends of the master sciences are preferable to the ends of the subordinate sciences, since the latter are pursued for the sake of the former. So once again, the point is this. If I could win the war without the cavalry, why bother with the cavalry? If I could have a great cavalry without hiring bridle makers, I won't have bridle makers. But the point of bridle making is to get my horses to work. And the point of my horses is to win the war. And the point of winning the war is, well, you get the idea. So in cases where we have these hierarchical arrangements, it's the master science, the superordinate science, whose end is the important one, the superior ones, and the others are subordinate to that. But the question then is this: what's the highest good? Aristotle points out that on pain of infinite regress, this hierarchy can't go on forever. It can't be that everything is only good for something else. Whatever's at the top of that hierarchy, whatever we do, whatever it is for the sake of which we do everything else, that's going to be the highest good. That's the one that Aristotle's after. Where we find ourselves now is then halfway through the first major argument in the Nicomachean Ethics. Aristotle has argued that activities are done for goods, that the goods are the point of the activities, and that many of our activities, much of our life, is organized hierarchically. It's got to be that there's a highest good, or everything that we do is in the end pointless. There's no answer to the question, why do we live in the first place? But we don't yet know what that is. We know that there must be such a highest good. In the next lecture, we're going to find out what that highest good is and explore its nature. So please come back so we can continue the argument. See you next time.